Hey YouTube, thanks for joining me. Hey, this is going to be a great episode. I'm going to take you back into the past, and I'm going to show you how I turned this into this. Stick with me, it's going to be a good one. Welcome to my life. Hey YouTube! Hey, this episode is going to be just a little bit different than my normal episodes. I'm going to walk you through the restoration of my 1968 VW Beetle. Some of this is going to be rough because it was way before we had good digital cameras. Matter of fact, we had just gone into digital camera age. I think my camera was like a 2 megapixel camera, which was the coolest thing ever at that time. I think some of the pictures, when it has a lot of light, show pinkish, but that's just the way it is. So the story behind this 1968 VW Beetle, I didn't even want it. I was working in mobility section at the squadron level. So for you non-military people, mobility is the people that get the people ready and the equipment ready to deploy to go into combat. And this guy was going in by himself into another group that was already there. He was replacing somebody or something like that. And so he had a checklist of things he had to do, and one of the things he didn't want to do was to go to the doctor. And he was really a jerk to me about the whole thing, trying to get me to pencil whip the doctor stuff for him. And because he was a total jerk, I wasn't even interested in helping him out or figuring it out. So I forced the issue too and made him go to the doctor. And I was a young kid. I was probably an A1C. For you, that's really low ranking. And he was like a tech sergeant at the time. To me, that was like really high ranking, but he was just such a jerk to me, trying to force me into it. I wasn't having it. And so off he went to his doctor's appointment after my supervisor got involved and all that stuff. But off he went to his appointment, and the doctor immediately sent him down from Eielson Air Force Base, where I was stationed, to Anchorage, where the big hospital was, and they determined that he had cancer, and it was all over his body. It was really sad, but and so they sent him back to pack up his wife and children. They had 6 kids, and so they packed up, and he moved them to their final destination. The military medically retired him, and he died like a couple weeks later. So the whole process, that was probably a couple months. Really sad story. But when they PCS'd, this was his toy car. Matter of fact, it was his baby. He loved it. That's when you have 6 kids. Your hobby is very limited in your finances limit you in your hobbies, right? So this was a big deal to him. So the BW, you can buy parts $15-20 and add to them. It's pretty cool. So that's what he did. He would fix this old VW up. But it's sad. She didn't take it with her. No, they didn't take it with them. They had 2 decent cars, and so those PCS with them. And that's all they could do. And then you'd have to pay shipment from Alaska to wherever it is he went. And so they left this behind, and they left it within charge of one of their friends, and they put it on the lemon lot, which is the sale lot for used cars on base. And it sat there forever. I mean, we would see it day in and day out. I don't know, probably 6-7 months it sat there. Whatever. And my wife had kind of kept up with the story, and the 6 kids and the wife struggling and all that. And so she kept leaning on me to buy this car. They wanted like $2,500 for it or something. It was ridiculous at the time for this car, even though Alaska prices are way higher than everywhere else. And so eventually she twisted my arm enough that I went and we bought this car. And it sat in the backyard for, I don't want to exaggerate, but it had to have been a couple of years. I just pulled it in the backyard. I had no interest in it, and it just kind of sat there. One day I just decided, hey, let's get this out and play with it, right? So I got it out and charged the battery and did a couple little things that it needed and got it running. And I decided, I had a V10 Dodge, and I thought, well, I could save money by driving this back and forth to work. And so I started doing that, and I actually enjoyed it. But about after 6 months of driving it, little things would happen, and we went in from summer into winter, and I just remember one time the front spindle, the bearings actually froze up and locked to the spindle. It actually welded itself to the spindle. And so that front wheel was locked and there's nothing I could do. I didn't want to pay for a tow truck, and the road was ice. So I just skidded that one wheel home. I just turned the steering wheel like, I don't know, it was the opposite of whatever it was dragging. And I just drove probably about 10 miles. I drove it home with the wheel locked up on the ice. So there was lots of little things like that I really wasn't into breaking down in the freezing cold. And usually at the end of my shift, you're just so tired and you just want to get out of the cold. You didn't want to play around. So I kind of quit driving it after that. I mean, it was a couple different breakdowns, but that was the major one or whatever. So I kind of just put it away again. And we PCS to Missouri. And at the time, it was really weird. Both me and my wife were active duty. We both served. We both were retired from the military. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's me, but she did as well. And so we were both capable of shipping 2 cars each. And so we shipped this Bug as one of the 2 cars on her, for her. And so we took it to Missouri, and it sat in the backyard in Missouri for probably a couple years. And one day we got it out. We just decided, hey, we're going to play with this. My wife said she was going to drive it. Yeah, right. But anyway, we actually rattle canned it blue and silver. Here's a picture of that. And we drove it here and there, but it would give you like an exhausty smell. You'd smell like a little exhausty when you got in and out of it. And, it just wasn't, it didn't have air conditioning, of course, and, whatever. Whatever. Nobody ever really drove it for much. So years later, we decided we were going to tear it down. My wife said she's going to use it as her daily driver again, but she wanted me to fix it up for her. So I started tearing into it, and one thing led to another, and we just started really ripping into it. This is a picture of my daughter. She was actually excited to help me when we started. But when I get into something, I really get into something, and so I really started stripping it down. And one thing led to another, and I tore the interior out of it just to check how rusted it was and what was going on with the car. And there was a lot of rot. I mean, you can see floor plans were just rotted out. I mean, just rusted beyond repair, right? And so the more I pulled it apart, the more I found that was wrong with the car. And then I decided, you know what? Let's just do this thing. Let's just restore this car. Here's my kid later on. She definitely was not so excited in the middle of the afternoon to be helping after I got started. But just tearing the hoods off and the doors off and get this gas tank out. And one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden I decided I'm going to take the body off the pan because the floors had to be restored. So I did that. I used the basketball cord in the back as a lift to lift the car off of it, and then used jack stands. And then I rolled the chassis up into the garage. Now, it didn't help that my buddy at work, Jackson, he had a real nice VW Bug. If I can find a picture, I'll throw that in here. I don't have one of it. I tried looking him up on Facebook, but I can't remember what he goes by, Mad Taco or something, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, he had a Bug, and it was redoing his Bug. I mean, but his was already beautiful. It had a tricked out engine, and I mean, it was just beautiful. And that kind of, when you have a buddy that is excited about something, it just screws you over because you get into it just as much as they do. And so that didn't help this situation at all. I mean, that tried to push me to go that next level of the Bug. Instead of just fixing it, I decided 100% restoration at that point. I mean, I didn't have any experience doing any kind of metal work or whatever, but I stripped it all the way down. You can see we took the floor pans out, so I had to get a spot welder cutter and drill each one of those spot welds out, and I got that done, and then got it down basically to the T, and then took the front end off, and then here's me working on the rear end. I had those floor pans, ordered new floor pans, and then had those sitting on there, had to cut them to fit because VWs are all different. They're not, it's like working on a boat, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Here I am stripping it down, getting all the rust off of it. I mean, just hours and hours with a grinder and a buffing, a grinder wheel, a wire wheel. I bought a welder because I was going to have to start doing some welding, obviously. I got the floor pans welded in after I got it all stripped down here. This is on the basketball court. I started priming them. And then of course I painted the chassis. At this point, man, I was really excited because, you know, things seemed like they were really coming along and I made it a long way, but I just thought this was cool. And this is really where I started buying into, this is going to be a cool car. So yeah, I got the chassis all done, got it back in the garage. And I started working on the front end and getting all the rust off everything and priming it up and painting them up. And this is the transaxle, rebuilt the transaxle, you know, all new bolts, all starter, you know, anything that you could replace that wasn't expensive, I replaced. Then unless it was worn, you know, I just rebuilt. But yeah, I mean, this has taken years, you know, I mean, literally years, because we just didn't have a lot of money. So little by little, but yeah, so this is the transaxle back in the thing after I got it rebuilt. Some of these may be a little bit out of order, but for the most part, you get the idea. So I get, you know, put her back together. There I'm putting the clutch back on it, and clutch cable. Yeah, doing a lot of neat stuff. This was the rear suspension bar there. So then I switched over from the chassis after I got really excited about that to the body. I had to actually cut the heater channels out of it, which was part of the support. But Jackson had been through some of that before, so having that advice from a friend made it a little easier. But there's the new one with the old one. The old one was just totally rotted out, and that it's a unibody really, but those heater channels are really the chassis. So anyway, I got those welded in and redone, and then that gave me a little confidence, right, that I could do this, you know. So yeah, so ended up swapping both sides out eventually, and then a bunch of the other parts there. But had it sandblasted by a guy in town that I had found. He did a really good job. Did it without warping it, which the tops on those are real sensitive to warping. But that little allowed me kind of a vision of what was really going on with the car, because paint just covers everything up, right? And there were a lot of issues. The front was dented in, the back was crooked, a lot of rust on the sides. So Jackson came over and gave me a quick tutorial on welding and you know, body work. So he spent about a day with me that day, and we did the front end together. Just watching him do it though, and him talking to me about, you know, spot welding first and don't go in. And then this is my first attempt at a patch, which I did okay on. You know, it took me a while, but I did okay on it. And then of course there's rot everywhere. You can see the rocker panel there is rotted. So I cut it out. And you can buy most of these little panels from, I mean, they're all pretty much available. Not as good as metal, but you can buy just about everything for there. But then of course, you know, I just bought a sheet of metal as well, and then we'd cut the parts out that I needed, and then I'd weld those in. So I did a lot of this. This was years and years. I mean, well, I don't say years and years. This was probably a year or so, maybe 2 years that I spent doing this, which was actually fun. It was cheap. I mean, replacing metal, you know, pieces like this is cheap, and then you spend hours making it the right cut, and then you spend, you know, lots of time making the new piece, and then learning how to round the metal and, you know, bend the metal right, weld it in. It was a good learning experience. And then of course, you know, learned how to Bondo. At the time I'd met another guy that had just started a body shop, so he got me some good mud, so I wasn't using Bondo, and went to town. You know, eventually I built a cart for my welder. I was using it so much. And then came the day to prime, and Jackson had painted before, so he came over and helped me prime out he actually primed the car for me. So that was neat. I mean, he took his time and explained to me what he did. I shot some of it, but not very much, because I didn't want a bunch of runs. He shot the majority of it. Knowing what I know now, I would have just shot it, because it's good practice, and you end up sanding it all down, most of it anyway. But it did good. It preserved the Bug for the next couple years that I spent working on the body and saving up for parts and all that kind of stuff. So these are just shots of it after it was primed. I got the hood, you know, got things back together. I don't know what I was doing here, but anyway, it's just showing the job we did after it was primed. So I got these new VW wheels. That was my idea. Is I wanted to put the new VW had just come back out right around this time, and so I wanted to take those rims and put it on an old VW Bug. I thought that would be cool. So I got these off of eBay, and so this is me test fitting those rims on there on the car to see what it would look like. I thought it was going to look pretty cool. I liked it. I think later on I thought about getting some aftermarket rims, but at the time You know, I think the whole thing cost me a couple $100 for all four, and we didn't have a whole lot of cash, so just did what I could do. I thought it would look cool. There's a picture of the motor out, kind of the garage being a mess. So then I started working on the brakes, got some lower drop spindles and disc brakes for the front. You know, the drum brakes never really worked that great, so it was cool that they had these kits that you could buy to convert stuff. Somebody had already thought it out. And of course, here's all new brakes for the rear. Put in the. Oh, this is one of the few videos that I do have. You know, it's real grainy. I know, I get it, but this is what I got. But just walking around, I was painting the brake drums at that point, and it just looked cool to me. I don't even know what year this was. It had to be, shoot, I have no idea. I'm guessing, I don't know, 02, 03 maybe, about that point. But yeah, I'm glad I have this video, even if it is crappy. It just kind of gives you the kind of feel for the garage. I built those little carts for both the body and the chassis to ride on. Here it is. I'm putting the calipers on. I thought that was cool. Spacers, because those wheels are way deeper dish than the originals. So I had to do wheel spacers. Adjustable leaf spring in the back. Putting those on there. You know, technology for bugs just kind of started changing too. There was a new company called Air Cooled, and they were coming out with a lot of neat stuff for adjusting your ride height on the bugs, and a bunch of other parts. They were pretty cool. Now there's the chassis. Each one. I think I got the pedals on. I don't even know what I was doing there. New polyurethane bushings. Oh, there's the front stabilizer I put on. Yeah, just. I think I was doing brake lines during that one, so I put in all new brake lines. There's test fitting the wheels for the first time, so with the spacers they fit on there just fine. Now, the spacers also allowed me to change the wheel lug pattern. I forgot about that. Yeah. So there's the first time with the wheels. Now those aren't the tires that I ended up keeping on there, of course, but they're tires that came with it. So I had those on there for a couple of years. Because I couldn't afford to put low profile tires on there like I wanted. So there's the body. I lifted, of course I had, you know, the body was back off the chassis. Oh, I think this is when I'm putting it on. Sorry, this is the first time I'm putting the primer body back on the chassis. After all my welds, making sure everything lined up, make sure everything fit. So this is kind of a test fit thing. It was cool. Had to borrow, I didn't even have tie-down straps. I had to borrow them from work to get the thing lowered onto the chassis. But she did fit. She sat higher than I thought she would. She sat way up. I thought the weight would push it down. It didn't push it down much. Of course, it didn't have an engine in it either. But so I'm just kind of test fitting everything, you know, together, fenders, all that stuff on it. Just looking at it. I think I had to move a couple things. I think one of the brake lines was in the way or something. I can't remember what the deal there was. But it sat way too high for me for what I wanted. But it's still, I was excited. It looked cool. It was coming together, kind of thing, you know. There's several points where you think, man, this is great. You know, there are huge steps, and you're like, I'm almost done. You know, we're near done, you know. But it was cool getting the body back on there. I know I was really excited that time. So then the ride height, of course, I wanted to bring it down more. So I figured out how they had these little kits, these little things you could buy, spacers in the center. So you cut the center of this thing apart, and then you put these new brackets in, and that allowed you to adjust the torsion bars in the front to bring the front end down, and gave you, I don't know, 1.5 inches, I think, slide. I don't even remember. So I put those on there, welded those on there, and that was a big feat for me because I never did any major component, you know, welded any major component. So it came out pretty nice, actually. I was really surprised, actually, at how straight I got it. Kind of cool. But then it dropped it down. You can see how much it dropped it down. And originally, that's what I was going to stick with. You know, the back was adjustable. I could bring it down, the back springs, and then the front I bring down to that level. And I was going to kind of roll with that. I thought that was going to be cool. That was the latest technology at that time. When I brought it down, I needed wider fenders, so I ordered fiberglass fenders for it. Those were a pain to get on there, but I finally, you know, enough sanding and enough bending, and I got those on there. To where they look pretty decent. So there's the back ones going on there. These were like 3 inches wider, so the car looked cool too because it was way wider. And then I wanted Corvette style taillights to go into it. At the time, this was the closest I was going to get to a Corvette. Then first time working with fiberglass ever, right there. I cut the tail lights out, which was really scary for me at the time, and then fitted the new ones in there, which they actually fit perfect. I mean, I made it so tight. I was so scared. I made it so tight. It just fit in there just really nice. Of course, it's, I had all the time in the world to work on it, but there they are, just test fitted in there. And then we took some kitty hair, basically, or I took some kitty hair, and that's the way that you fiberglass them in, is with that kitty hair type fiberglass. But it worked out pretty good. I mean, a lot of sanding. And then I started the body work, smoothing in the panels, making it extra smooth. That takes a lot of patience. I never really got good at that. I did okay, never really got good, just like the transom on the $10 boat. I can do okay. I just don't have a lot of patience for getting it extra smooth, even though I want it extra smooth. So this is, we're starting to cut in the top. I wanted a rag top on the Bug, so we cut in the top. And the kit was supposed to sit on top of the roof, but I didn't like that. So I wanted it to go underneath. So I basically drilled a bunch of holes in the fiberglass kit, and then welded on cut the heads off bolts and welded them on the roof all the way around. And then that allowed me to bolt the kit up underneath. And then, of course, I just body worked that kit back in there. There was glue, some kind of glue too. I don't remember what the deal was, but that took forever to research. Didn't really have YouTube back then, so we didn't have YouTube. Not really. We didn't have YouTube back then for me to go out and research what the best kind of glue is. You had to talk to people, and body shops didn't like to give up their secrets, but I had figured out the best way to glue that to the top and then bolt it in and then do the body. At this point, air-cooled came around. I know I talked about them earlier, and they came out with new technology for air ride. This is one of their first kits. They've come a long way since then, but at the time it was the coolest thing. So I welded in these brackets and I bagged the back. So that's the bracket there going in the back. Pretty neat welding job for me. I know it wasn't perfect welds, but pretty neat for me to weld in those brackets. And then there's kind of the way that the kit worked, and the bag's in, and then I'm installing the air lines. In the front, it was air shocks. So all that work I did on the adjustable front end, I changed my mind and went with this air system, which I did several times throughout this process. But technology had changed. I mean, it took so long. Technology was changing as I was doing. So there you go. It's on the ground there with those new bags. That's how low it would go. I mean, it really would touch the ground. I mean, if you wanted it to, you had to adjust it so it wouldn't. So there's the rear end, bagged out, slammed on the ground. Man, it was cool. I remember being so excited about it because it was really looking the part at that point, the way I wanted it. So pretty cool. I didn't even want to put the body on it. I just think that look right there. Put some seats on there, put the motor on there. I thought that was cool right there. Leave it just like that. So here's a video I have. There's a couple of them here, but basically me using my air tank to test them out. So pretty cool. You could put it right on the ground if you didn't want it. I mean, you had to adjust it. So there you go. That's it sitting on the ground. Here's another video, just a different angle. I think I lifted the back end on this one. So as you can see, the system worked actually pretty well. I didn't pump it that fast. It took a little longer to fill the air tank with the small compressor that goes in the car as opposed to the big compressor for the garage. It was cool technology for the time. So yeah, there's just a picture from the side of when it slammed down. I mean, you could get it on the ground. So there, I'll put the body back on it so you can kind of see when you park, you can just drop it. I like that look. I think it looks cool. So then I decided I didn't want to put the exhaust. I wanted a different exhaust system. They came out with all kinds of new exhausts for them, so I filled in the exhaust holes. That was fun. First time doing like real good bends. Then I built this stereo box for the back end. I didn't want back seats. I built the stereo system, 410s, and this massive amp that I got on eBay. eBay was the big thing at that time. It just came out. There's a metal bracket I made, and then this I took it to the body shop for them to smooth it out to make it real smooth. So this is them doing that. This was Curry's Rod Shop down in Missouri. I found them. Really liked the work they did, and I dig the guy. He's cool. He didn't when I first pulled up I didn't have the Bug. I talked to him, and he's like, I don't do Bugs. But then I brought it back down on a trailer, and when he saw it on the trailer, he's like, man, I can dig what you're doing here. Put in Dynamat on the chassis all over to keep the road noise down, which really worked a lot. That did good. Oh, and you can also see I got my new low profile tires at that point finally. Again, this is a span of years. I mean, I bought the Z28 then from my neighbor. This is where the body just got to Curry's for the first time. I put these chrome hood brackets on there with shock absorbers as opposed to springs. Let's see. Yeah, this is just the body getting prepped. Oh, this is after he primed it. So he did the Bondo on it, smoothed it out. Didn't have to do a whole lot, to be honest with you, for body work compared to what, I mean, he did a lot, don't get me wrong, but comparatively, I did okay. He just had to finish it off. This is where we picked the color. I fell in love with this yellow. I'm not a yellow guy, and then of course I had to change out some of my components to be yellow just to kind of match the body. So there's the speaker box after it got painted. I remember being thrilled about that. I mean, it just came out so cool. There's the doors and the hood. I mean, look at that glossy shine on there. It was cool. There's all the different components: the air tank, glove box, dash, steering column. And there's the body after it got painted. That was a big day. I remember being thrilled. This was an expensive paint job at the time. It was, I think we spent, around $8,000 on the paint job, the body work, which was way more than the car was worth, and way a lot of money for us. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, so we really stepped our game up on this one. But me and my wife both love the car.
I went low.
So this is right after I bring the chassis up, and he let me use the shop, and I mounted the undercarriage off of it on it, and then he helped me get the speaker box into it. So that was pretty cool. So now the speaker box is in there. The car's mounted to the chassis permanently. So that was a thrilling day. I mean, it was cool. It was cool. We did basically bed liner in the engine compartment and the wheel wells. So I thought that was kind of a cool detail. Got the back fenders mounted and lined up. It took a lot to align them. Every time you took those fiberglass fenders off, they would change shape. So it took a lot to get those really close. We wanted them as close as we could get them. But mounting up the hood, and the first time we mounted the hood, we shut the top and it locked. So we had to get up underneath it and get that hood latch unlocked. But we figured it out. It was just a line wrong. But air ride came in handy there, pumped the front up, whatever. So there she is on the ground with the front fenders on there. It was just cool. I mean, I could have sat there and looked at that all day long. I don't know how many, there's the first time in the sun. You kind of get the lots of color. I don't know how many of you guys have done this kind of stuff. But it's really thrilling when you get to a certain stage, You start off with a project, just like the $10 boat, and then you just keep working through each stage. You get something that's nicer and nicer, and then at the end, it's almost unbelievable that you've done this, whatever. So I was thrilled with this guy. Yeah, I got the side steps or whatever on it. Bought some real nice aluminum ones. They had just come out. But yeah, it was cool. So there we are, saying goodbye. There's Curry himself. And loaded up on the trailer and took it home. That was a big day. I remember I was so proud, driving down the road, people were looking at it. Then I was like, how do I get it off the trailer? Because, I had to get it off there. So I kind of just backed up to the curb and put the ramps down from there. And we pushed her up the hill. And then we got her in the garage. And I don't know, I must have just walked around that thing for 4 days. I don't know. It was cool. But you had to go moving. So I had to start getting her put back together. So here we are on the inside. Before, I think I'd swapped out the gas pedal there to yellow. Put Dynamat in the walls and in the doors. Started putting the carpet in the speaker where the amp was going to go, and then mounting the yellow back up. Putting the dash back together. I found some mesh metal to go behind the dash where the radio speaker used to be, just to kind of block it off. It looked cool. Got the tail lights all mounted back in there. That was exciting. Chrome strips on the side, chrome little vents back on it. Each little piece just gave it that much more pop to me, so I just thought it was cool. There it is from the front, just sitting on the ground. There it is one evening. It just looked cool sitting there with the light on it. There, I get the headlights in. Chrome strip up the hood. Here I'm doing electrical. I put all a new electrical kit in there. I can't remember what company, but I found a company that made VW electrical harnesses, and I put that in. Of course, this is putting the air ride modules in. Trying to figure all that out, where I was going to mount the compressor, where I was going to mount the tank. This is where I mounted it. Of course, you ain't putting a spare tire the size of these tires in there. So, and then there is the platform I made, carpeted it all in for the air tank, and put in the fluid bottles. This is the top. We're putting the rag top on. It was a kit. We're trying to figure it out. Melissa was helping me there. We were putting the interior in. We put the carpet, you had to kind of glue it down. And of course cut it because it didn't fit right. So I got that matching carpet and then boxed in my air tank so you didn't see the cables there. There's the kit, basically how it came. And basically then we went to installing the rag top. It was quite interesting for sure. We followed their instructions to the T, but of course my kit was underneath instead of over, so that caused a lot of issues. The things couldn't drag over, so we had to find a way to slide it across the paint without scratching the paint. And anyway, we ended up fitting it pretty good. It came out really nice, honestly. When it was, it took a little bit to stretch it out and get it to fit perfect, but there you go. And then, of course, that's an antenna from the new Bug. We got that figured in there, and then put in the carpeting, and then I made these walls on the side for the kick panels, put speakers in, and put in the amps in, and the speakers. Speaker of the platforms, built those platforms with carpet to go down the bottom. To kind of finish it out. Got the back panels in. Here we are doing the headliner. Boy, the headliner was a pain, but we did get it done. It just took us a while. Boy, you did get it fitted. It's not hard to put in, but it's hard to put in and look nice. You get these little wrinkles everywhere. It's tough to pull those out. But we got it done. Of course, we had to cut the top out of it because we had to match it to our roof that we had cut open. So that was fun. But here's the door panels going in. The side panels and all that stuff. Just trying to get it. Oh yeah, the bilted handles, and there's the dash going in, the stereo going in. It just started looking really cool. The glove box and all that stuff was in. Turn signals are on here. I'm putting the rear windshield back in. Trying to get that chrome strip back on there was a pain, but we got it. Side windows back in. Building the sides here to the side of the stereo. Working on that. I don't know what I was doing there. Whatever. There you go. The carpet's going in, so that was cool to get to that point. And I got some racing seats, and this is all over time. This didn't happen instantly. I mean, this is, we couldn't afford we just did a little bit here and there. There's a rear mirror, front windshield's in, windshield wipers are back on. Kind of a shot of the interior. So there's kind of the exterior. So then it was time to get this motor done. So we took the motor up to a VW guy, and then I basically took it all apart, painted it all up, and then reran. This was the wiring harness for the engine going, and trying to get that engine back in there. The best way to do that, we found, was just to lift the entire car and then put the engine in from underneath. So that's what we did. Lifted the car up, put it in. And then by then, technology, of course, I got headers and a different kind of exhaust. So it changed the sound from that VW ping, ping, ping to more of a rumble, which was cool for a VW. So there she is with the exhaust on the back. So basically, that's the car. I'm just going to throw a bunch of pictures in here of the finished car. But this is what she turned out to be. So you can see in the pictures there, we had moved locations. We had PCS to Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, where I worked on the staff. But at the end of that tour, both Melissa and I got orders to Korea, and then with a follow-on to separate bases actually too, and then with a follow-on to England, where we would be together again. The Korea tours were a year long. So she went to one base in Korea, I went to the other. We could only ship one car each, so she shipped hers and I shipped my main car, the Z3. So basically we ended up getting rid of a lot of stuff. But this is one thing that we did get rid of that I wish we hadn't of now, looking back, but it was what it was. But I still ended up selling it to a guy that owned a car dealership, and his son, he bought it for his son, so that's never good. So it's probably destroyed. I have no idea. If anybody knows about the car, though, I'd be interested to know where it's at and what shape it's in. But looking back, it was really a great experience. I mean, I learned so much doing that car that I put into the Corvette already. It was a neat challenge. It took us a long time. It probably meant more to me. That project probably meant more to me than even the Corvette, because we struggled just to get the next $15 part. Our kid was in high school and had all kinds of stuff, and that was our focus. And this was kind of in the background, but it was fun. And each time you did something, it was neat. So it was a cool experience. I enjoyed it. Learned a lot, doing this car. So I wouldn't change it for the world, but I do miss the car. Yeah, it was a cool car. Well, I appreciate you joining me this week. I know this one was a little different. It was cool for me because I got to go back and dig up all these pictures and find this stuff. But what a great memory, and hopefully you enjoyed it the same way I did. See you next week. Hey everybody, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, Shots Life, on YouTube.